Listen.
I've been hearing a lot lately about men don't talk, but in my experience, men do talk, just people aren't listening. So it's going to be me and a group of blokes discussing our struggles and victories through life. Warning, there may be some bad language, so apologies to all the moms, especially my own. Let's get going.
Listen.
Abby, now, this is the Black Country Blokes showing the fact about everything is mental health, disability, and life in general. Here with me, Kev Dillon, and my partner in crime, as always, Lee Cadman. And today we're joined by Ben. Now, you might hear I'm not feeling the best. I've still got my virus, but
spreading it to all of us.
Yeah, that's it. A day above ground is a good day. But before we start, we're going to do our gratitude list. Now, I'm grateful. A lot of people say they're going to do stuff and never do. But I've got a good friend who comes to my free daytime sessions, Tim, and he's been doing our shorts for us. And that's a big help for us, isn't it? So he's going through the episodes and he's getting loads of different shorts so we can share it on social media, on YouTube. And so a massive thank you to Tim, because it is a big help.
It's enough a big help. You know what? Editing is the bane of my life, isn't it? With this stuff, and to have someone who's doing that and taking the clips, listen to the episodes, it's time consuming, and he's doing it all for free. And yeah, we really appreciate him.
Yeah, so that's my gratitude. Whatever you are, pal.
Well, finally, I'm going to look at a house tomorrow. I've spoken many times on here now about the housing situation with my daughter, but finally tomorrow we're going to actually view one, and I'm really looking forward to seeing that and hopefully moving.
You know what I mean? That's been best part of a year now,
near enough a year now. Yeah, near enough a year.
Every battle and every. But one thing you have learned, and anyone he's been experienced, and you've learned it the hard way. But at least if someone does need advice, you've been here to help them out here.
That's it. Hopefully, we can advise people and speed their process up.
And Ben, what are you grateful for, bruv?
I'd just say the people around me at the moment. I've kind of come to a place in the last probably year where I've got people around me. Like, don't get me wrong, it's not a lot of people, less than 5, but people you can actually rely on. And like my partner especially, it's just been really fulfilling to have that behind you.
I think you find that as you get older, though, it's not about how many friends you've got, it's about the quality, friends and family, the quality of the ones that are there.
Quality over quantity.
Yeah, definitely. And you do, as you get older, you just tend to lose. You do, and you're left with the good. I'm still trying to get rid of Kev.
Like a bad cold.
That's it.
Literally at the moment.
But it's funny as life. Like some friends are seasonal, and when you're a kid, we were on about this earlier. Want me on the phone? We're gonna be best friends forever. I'm gonna be the best man at your wedding, and you go to college or whatever. They have a girlfriend, and you lose them. Some people are seasonal. Every Christmas you see them. Some friends, they serve a purpose. They're there for a chapter. Very, very few people are there for the whole book, are they? From the start to the finish. Then, so that's just how it is.
It's life, isn't it? Like everyone's is there for a reason in some way. Some people are like leaves, as you say, they'll be there for a little bit, but if things get a little bit windy, it's goodbye.
Yeah.
Some people, it's they're a bit more like your roots and they will be around longer. But it just depends on you keeping them close and keeping them nourished as well as yourself. You give out as much as you take in that sense. There's no one-way relationships that work well, is there really? Let's be honest. You've got to give and take in everything. And it's something I've learned a lot. I was quite selfish when I was younger and stuff, but that was because I was so absorbed in everything. You don't really think about everybody else, do you? And I think that's kind of where I've come from it, is that I've had my issues and I've seen other people struggle, and I don't want people to feel that they're on their own with it now. And the people I have around me, we've all got our issues, haven't we? Every single one of us. Yeah. But it's being that person that you can be able to talk to and there if you need them.
I think once you get older as well, you realise everyone's broken in different ways, whether it's a disability, an experience, a trauma, or whatever it is. We're all broken in our own different ways. But as a child, you feel like you're the odd one out. And the same with that, when you're struggling, you don't realise that people are struggling around you. You just focus on yourself, and that's what you do when you're in a fight. You're not looking over your shoulder to see if your old pal's all right, because you're just trying to survive at the time, aren't you?
Yeah, definitely. that was a massive thing for me. Was like back in my time, like when I was struggling with, when I was 14, 15, trying to figure out what was going on. It was like you were so absorbed in your own battle, you saw nothing of how your actions would affect others or how you were portraying that to other people, etc. And it is consuming, isn't it? And it's about your way of dealing with it in a way that doesn't like affect other people. But you know, that's why some people are there at times, and then that's why they aren't there. You know, everybody has a purpose to be there, but you know, people going isn't a bad thing. It's you're still growing in that, aren't you? That's
right. But I think it still happens even as you're older. If you hit a bad point with depression and you don't get off the sofa, your consideration at that point is not really of the people around you, is it? And rightfully so. You've got to get yourself better before you start looking at that. But what I found myself is once you come out of that dark time, that depression, you're then thinking about, actually, I need to speak to this person and not necessarily repair the relationship, but talk through what actually happened.
It's important to do. Like I've had to do it quite a lot in the last probably few years. And it's, you know, you do lose contact, you get absorbed in your own life, and not just if you're struggling. It's like, you know, everybody, as you grow older, you have your own life. You know, you have your relationships, you have your job, you have your own hobbies and interests.
Yeah, you don't speak to your parents as often, call them. You don't, your brothers, your sisters, your friends. You just don't see them as often, do you? And you need to catch up with that, don't you? Because unfortunately, we're all going to pass one day, and you don't want that regret of not speaking.
You just got to make the best of the time you have, don't you? And like you take value in what you feel that people are give value to you. So you choose to give the time to the people that give most value and purpose to yourself.
Yeah,
and it's a hard thing
and happiness.
It's a hard thing to like handle, isn't it? You don't know what's like the right thing always, but it's about what you feel at that time. You know, there's never a right answer, is there, about how you spend your time, what choices you make. There's always going to be that, oh, what if I did that differently or whatever. But that's, you know, you make choices and you learn from them, you grow. Like half the choices I made when I was younger, if I didn't like go through that, I wouldn't be half the person I am today.
So would you like to tell us about your story? Where does it begin? So
I'd say probably around 12, 13. So I lived with my mum and dad at the time, never married. My mum was like, she was a domestic abuse victim. So my dad would do lots of different kind of things, like from emotional abuse, sexual and whatnot. And I didn't really notice it for the first couple of years. Like, I knew things were wrong. Like there was arguments, shouting and stuff. I'd hide under the table at times, cuddling the dog and stuff. And you know what? I never felt like I could change anything. And it carried on for 2-3 years probably. It probably was happening long before then, but that's when I started to notice it.
Become aware at 12.
Yeah, but you know, like you do as a kid, you distract yourself from things, don't you? You don't focus on negative stuff like that. Like I was always out playing football down the park till 10 o'clock at night in the summer and stuff. Like I kept myself well out of those situations.
But it's your home life as well. When you're seeing it all the time, it's almost normal to you. It's only when you go to someone else's house and you're seeing their mommy and daddy not acting in the same way of yours, you think, hey, up, this ain't quite right.
And I think that's what happened. Like, I think people like on the street and stuff, like my neighbours, there was like one kid and his family, which I went round to quite a lot, that lived opposite us. And I think they knew what was going on. And I think the more I spent time around there or at my mates around the corner and stuff, I noticed it. And I think when that hit me, it was just like, I need to protect her. But like being 13, 14, I had no idea how to.
Of course, yeah.
And I started boxing and kickboxing eventually. That helped quite a lot with like the anger stuff.
Was that something your mum and dad got you into? That was on your own?
Yeah, it's like I was playing football all the time when I was younger. I always did that. And my coaches, so one of my coaches, her partner was a kickboxing coach. And I went into that eventually. I don't really know how I got into it, but I remember just going along and I started helping with the kids' classes and whatnot. And it was just like a massive distraction. Like, I probably did up to like 17, but when I was about 15, everything kind of with my dad and stuff, I kind of just one day got back and you know, he was going off the wall, shouting, raging, and whatnot. I don't know what came over me that day, but I was like, you know what, that's it. I can't deal with this anymore. And I got him to leave. And I think that was like that turning point for me. Like, don't get me wrong, I think that's probably where everything started, really, more than when 12, 13. I think that's where everything, like the damn walls came down. Everything was so much more on me because I was thinking I have to protect my mum. And
which is horrible for a child to feel like that, isn't it? That you have to be the protector.
I think that was the biggest thing for me. Like, it was, I always felt guilty that I couldn't do it more. And I think that's like why with my, like, I haven't had a relationship with my mum now for 7 years. And I think the reason that is because there's always too much water into the bridge. I can't get past the feeling of why wasn't I enough to stay around for? I'll get back to this. But then why couldn't I protect you as well? There's probably guilt on both sides. And so, like, I'll go back to that. So when I was 17, my mum met another bloke after my dad left and whatnot. There was 2 or 3 before then, all douchebags, literally useless, didn't do anything, nothing but scrimping and saving, always in the house, causing arguments, same kind of person. Like,
Repeating the same pattern.
And I think you find that a lot, don't you, with like domestic abuse and stuff. People victims don't realise it, and they are drawn to that kind of normality for them. And when she did that, like, the one guy had to come home from holiday early with my friends, had to come back and get him out of the house. And there was like, and then...
Was you still living at home then?
Yeah. I lived at home till about 17. My mum then decided, you know what, living here is too much for me. I can't cope with everything that's happened here, etc., etc. She met this other bloke who I never met and said, right, I'm moving up to Brum. Do you want to come with me? And I was like, I can't do it. I can't put myself in that situation again where he's violent or whatever. I can't put myself through it again. Like, I came out of hospital. I had 3 inpatient stays in hospital before then in mental health wards. And as I come out, it was just like, I'd not put myself through it. So she up and left me homeless. And I stayed on my mate's sofa for a few months. Then I got back on my feet and got my own place. And yeah, I was like 18 when I got my own place. And it was like building from there.
Do you think you had like having to go into an establishment with the stress? Was it overlapping mental health stress from what was going on with your home life as well as being poorly?
So I was admitted when I was 14 or 15. I think it's 15, 16 and 17.
Every year, basically.
It was always around September to November.
Isn't that funny? People have that certain time, whether there's been a trauma or whatever, but it's getting around that time, I'm going to get a bit poorly.
I think it was, for me, it was that, you know, like holding everything in all year, like, you know, at school and whatnot. And then it just got to a point where it would just build and build, and I couldn't tolerate it anymore. And it would just all come tumbling out in an attempt on my life, or, you know, a crisis call or something really dangerous and silly. Not silly at all. It wasn't silly for where I was.
Yeah.
It was really difficult situation. Like, I couldn't see a way out. I was
Did you feel like you genuinely wanted to end your life at that point, or was it more like, I want help?
I think for me it was more, I want the pain to stop. I don't think it was, I want help. I don't think it was, I don't want to be here anymore. I think it was, I cannot tolerate this situation
Keep going
anymore.
On. Yeah.
I need it all to just give. And yeah, there was probably 5 attempts from like 15 to 20. And yeah, they were all that same kind of thing, letting it build and build and then not talking. And then all of a sudden it just comes out in this attempt.
Yeah.
And like, hospital wasn't helpful for me. Like, you know, it was, you know, hospitals nowadays, it's not loads of interventions and treatments, is it? It's very much, this is your safety net for the time being. And that's what it was. And don't get me wrong, that was massive for me, to have somewhere where I didn't have to worry about my own safety. You know, you had people around you making sure you were eating, making sure you were showering, making sure you were looking after yourself, making sure you're taking meds, etc. And just having someone that's always there if you needed to talk and whatnot.
but it's more of a safe bite than
that's all it was.
somewhere where I go, I've now learned some skills to help me from breathing exercise and yoga and stress relief. I come, I have my depot, I have a couple of tablets. They've stopped me from killing myself. I'll see you soon.
Literally, and I think that's what it was for me. Like I tried CBT, I had DBT, didn't help me, it made me worse. Like trying to go back and like relive it in that sense and try and unscramble it, I couldn't do it.
No.
And it put me off services all completely. But like the older I've got and stuff, the more I've learned about myself. And like for me, it's not big interventions like therapies and trying to understand why it happened, etc. It's learning, look, this is where I am and how do I best deal with what's happened and what I do to move forward with it and what helps me. And distractions is like the biggest thing for me, like keeping busy, gaming, work, boxing now and stuff like that, like just keeping myself going.
And I think a lot of people do the same thing, don't they? But it's making sure you err on the side of the good distractions as well. It's very easy to have a drink, to take drugs, to do the bad side, isn't it? But if you're doing the positive, you're gaming, you're boxing. Even those though, too much of it is not good for you. But it's certainly better than.
Yeah, I found that out. Like, I used because when I was kickboxing and stuff. It was 5 times a week I was going. I cut 7 kilo for a fight in 3 days. Like, definitely not great.
No.
And then like gaming, I was doing that. Like I used to work nights. Like so, I'd be like, as soon as I got home at like 2, 4 in the morning, I'd be on until 10, 11 a.m. And then crashing for 4 hours and going back to work, etc. And like it wasn't healthy, but it was just I was in that survival mode. Yeah. Of just getting through and doing what you've got to do.
And it's that survival mode. Like I met someone who was on heroin for years, and he goes, "Oh, I wasted my life." And I went, "Well, the heroin kept you alive until now, so it wasn't the end of the world." And that's sometimes you've got to think, "We're going, I'm wasting my life. I'm doing." It's kept you alive till this point, and now you're at this point. Now you want to get better.
Everybody has a vice.
Everyone has a voice.
You know, everybody has something that helps, like a little get me through the day kind of thing. You know, if it's coffee, if it's smoking, if it's having a drink in the evening, if it's going to the gym, you know, anything. Like everybody has their little thing that helps them. And I don't think there's anybody can tell you what's right and what's wrong. Obviously, there's the legal side of things and all that kind of you don't need to go into, but whatever helps somebody get through is important. And it shouldn't be like ignored and just said, no, that's terrible. Why are you doing that and stuff? It's trying to understand why are they doing it, and then how can we show them a better coping strategy or a technique instead of just saying, no, you shouldn't be doing that. It's learning other ways, isn't it? I
saw this thing once again. It's exactly what you just said. It's like people think it was drugs that was the problem, because no, I was the problem. I was just filling the problem with drugs. And it's right, when you look at that kind of thing going, why am I going to the gym 23 hours a day? Why am I doing drugs? Why am I gaming? And it's until you address the problem, then it's always going to be a problem, isn't it? You're just going to fill it with whatever it is.
And everybody has their fills their buckets in different ways, don't they? Like I've been reading a book lately by Oprah Winfrey and Dr. Bruce Perry. It's called What Happened to You. It's like all about trauma and what adverse childhood experiences, and it's like conversation between them. And there was something in there about their buckets. So everybody has a different bucket, and you know, some people, like someone that's struggling with mental illness, will fill theirs with more negative and more more temporary things. But then somebody that's like more mentally stable, mentally well, they would have their more concrete they would have their kind of relationships. They'll have friends, support networks around, and that'll fill a good half of that bucket. And then they have their other things which enrich that. But when you've got somebody that's not as mentally well and they don't have that stability around them, you see like there's sort of 10% of their buckets, their friendship, relationships, etc. And then the rest is all like, you know, if it's junk food, if it's going out, putting yourself in risky situations, going out on the piss every night.
So also that short-term dopamine hit, isn't it? Yeah. Let's get out of feeling like this, even if it's for 3 seconds.
But it's also amazing, you know, like with some people who are mentally ill, or someone who's got a disabled child, and it's amazing. Or you got this guy who you see, this athlete who's And then his bucket can just tip over at the side of his thing, losing a fight, or his partner leaves him, or then you've got someone who's got a severely disabled daughter, and you're thinking, what actually tips your bucket? It's amazing what tolerance we've all got to different things, and we say it's like
I think it's built, isn't it? You know, I don't think
it's repetitive.
Yeah.
You don't just wake up one day going, I am resilient.
Yeah.
It's
through life experience, good or bad.
Good or bad.
It literally says it in that book. There's a whole thing on stress response. And it is very much like, your early experiences from when you're like your first 6 months, they help to form your stress responses. So like, for instance, like a child that's not like gone to in the night and nurtured after like crying for hours, their stress responses are going to be different to someone that's cared. They understand they're cared for and loved straight away. Like all these things in your formative years have such a massive impact. And like everybody has their individual stress response, don't they? Like to low stress, to medium stress, to really high stress. Like some people deal really well with high stress, but they can't deal with those low stress things. Like, I've missed
someone's parked on the drive.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. But like,
someone
my wife's just got
pigeon pooed on my car.
Yeah, but that you saying that, but that could be
a massive tipping point for someone.
My husband's just got cancer. My daughter's drowned, and it's stay calm. We'll be, but a boo poos on the car could be the thing that tips the scales.
Breaks the camel's back.
We've just had a great comment. So we've had a few comments. If anyone wants to ask Ben or us questions for that matter, write them in the comments in Facebook or LinkedIn or YouTube, and we'll answer them and display them. But someone's just put it actually really well. So Regan Pinches has put, the more the iron is tempered, the tougher it becomes. All iron breaks under enough stress, and that's
it's true, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's amazing. You say how you look at someone and you go like, I would lost my like, were you in the baby? You know, my baby has tonsillitis, and I'm up all night. I'm panicking because I was a poorly child, and oh my god, he's there. The blue lights are going with colour, and how you hold yourself together. And then some days, you know, we'll be laughing, won't we? And go, oh, I don't know, something minute, and you could be up the walls, but it's some stuff you haven't got control over.
No.
Other stuff, someone pass on your drive. How dare he? Park on my flip. Didn't he know I needed to go to the butcher's? I'm going to go butcher's head in. You know what I mean? But some stuff, and that bloke who's part of the Detroit, yes, he might be an ignorant so-and-so, but he doesn't care about you. You just haven't entered his mind. You're just not on his radar because he had to go and pick the baby up from school or whatever.
Everybody's
You've got an issue with people parking on drive. You've
mentioned
it a few times here.
How many people we've almost punched already?
Create your own car park, like I've seen some people do.
Yeah, charge them.
Machine and stuff.
That's it. You're missing a money maker there, kid.
Have a sniper rifle there. but going right back to what you were saying about in Birmingham, your mum she moved to Birmingham and asked you. How did that make you feel? And
I just couldn't believe that she thought that it was a question. I think it was like, how could you think I would go and do that?
Yeah.
And still to this day, like, don't get me wrong, I haven't had contact for a couple of years, but when she's used to message me every couple of months or every year or so, oh, I miss you and stuff. And I think it was mostly for her own guilt and satisfaction. And when I replied, which I really wish I didn't a lot of the times, it was like, oh, it was your choice to stay here and stuff and whatnot. And it was like, what choice did I have? You know, I was 17. I was traumatized. I'm not long come out of hospital. And you want me to potentially go and stay with another bloke I've never met, who the last 2 or 3 have been violent and abusive. Do you think I want to put myself in that situation again?
I think you're very brave, to be honest, because in that situation, you could have gone with what you knew. Because to be left and you know, you're 17, you don't really know life, do you? You know, you probably panic the hell out. What am I going to do now? You know, I've got to.
Yeah, I think that's where like my friends like J and V came in. Like they were so valuable. Like they literally took me in as their own. They're probably your guys' ages and stuff, and they took me in as their own. Like Jay knew my mum back from in the day and whatnot, and he was always kind of there.
Yeah.
And they just took me in. I was sleeping on the sofa for 6 months, and it was that kind of just knowing someone gave a crap.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I don't really know why I made that decision. I think it was more, I cannot be another victim of this, because once I had my diagnosis as like complex PTSD,
Yeah, CPTSD. We've had that a few times.
I was reading like all the statistics and whatnot, and they absolutely terrified me. And like I was adamant back when I was 17, 18, I will be another statistic by I'm 21. Like I will be in a box by 21, definitely.
Would you explain what complex CPTSD is for the people who haven't watched our episodes?
So complex PTSD is PTSD in a nutshell, but either in a long and enduring way, so multiple events of the same nature or different nature over a certain amount of time, like it's no definitive, but it's a culmination of multiple traumatic events. Like PTSD usually stems from one traumatic event, like a bereavement or a suicide, or being in a war, for instance, having like being in a firefight and having that kind of PTSD, shell shock kind of stuff. And complex PTSD is being in those environments, those really high stress like experiences, long periods. And mine was probably, God, I don't know, like when I was probably younger, it probably was going on. I don't remember, and that's part of my PTSD is I blocked out a lot of my childhood, but that's like my own protection. But no, I'd say it's that the difference is massively on that, the long and enduring side. And there's no like, clinicians don't like to diagnose it because it's such a hard thing to diagnose. And the label it gives as well is like, it's so much more just all-consuming, and like the statistics around it. That was the biggest thing for me, was how I think it was, if you have CPTSD or you've experienced 5 or more adverse childhood experiences, you're 9.5 times more likely to attempt suicide. And I think that was like, wow, for me. And yeah, I don't think clinicians want to diagnose it because of that. And it's that, we don't want people to feel like they're always going to struggle with it. And
well, obviously you are going to struggle with it because you've had significant traumatic events for your most formative years that is going to have side effects on you, isn't it?
Yeah, and there's so much like unawareness about it, isn't there now? Like, it's starting to come about a lot more. Like there's trauma-informed care coming around a lot more and stuff. They're trying to introduce it into schools, etc. But there's so much unknown about how these things can affect you. Like ACEs as a whole, like adverse childhood experiences, there's like 10 or 12 categories of it. And I think, it's 5 or more, and it's 9.5 times more likely to attempt. And it's, they're not massive things, are they? Like it's, it could be just drug use in the family. It could be, have you ever been verbally shouted at and abused? Have you ever had uncomfortable experiences with like other family members? Have you ever been told you're unloved, etc.? And all these little things that like, they look like little things on paper, but they're actually massive things when you're in those like formative years, aren't they?
I think there is a difference between like, was I ever shouted at as a kid? Of course I was. To being verbally abused.
Yeah, there's a massive difference.
And it's like, did I ever have a slap on the leg as a discipline or a tanned arse? Is different to being beaten, isn't it? Yeah, and it's when people, you know what I mean? Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but I think it's also important to remember everybody interprets their own experiences differently.
Of course.
Like somebody like myself, like I could see some of my experiences, it's not a big deal, There might be one thing that I've gone through that, so I might think, it's nothing, it's just one of them things. And somebody, it could be the biggest thing for them, their biggest trigger.
And and you compare to yourself, because it's like, well, what you moaning about, I had worse. And you think, but that's not always the right attitude, because as you say, it's how that's affected you.
And that's what the whole trauma-informed approach is, and like the new service that I'm working with now for the NHS, like it's all about that trauma-informed, strength-based approach of.
Could you explain what that means, please?
So trauma-informed is being like aware of people's experiences and their traumas of whatever traumas and stuff they've been through, but taking that into the lens of, right, so how have these experiences affected how they are feeling, how they're behaving, and what are the outcomes for them in that? And it's trying to take it all, instead of looking at what helps everybody on a whole with PTSD of, we're telling them to EMDR, for etc. It's what's going to help this person with their experiences. and trying to help them make sense of it in their own way. Because, you know, we are, as people with experience your own mental health, you are your biggest kind of champion in that, of telling people what's happened for you and how it's affected you. Nobody, like any clinician, any professional that sits beside you and says what's happened to you, etc., is going to fully understand it as much as you do and how you've interpreted it. But I think the trauma-informed approach is all about trying to get to that point where you can understand it as fully as you can.
Back in the day, it's called empathy, wasn't it?
Well, no, it's through methods that you've also agreed to, isn't it? Because you know what's going to help yourself, don't you? I bet you might not straight away. You've got to try things to find that, but there's no point going to one person. Well, if you go to CBT, you're going to be fine, because you might not be. You know, you've got to experience these things to see where actually that one was rubbish for me. That one was fine. Taking this medicine here, it has helped me great. So, you know, doing that way. There's not one size fits all, is there? Yeah.
Like with my experiences, you know, like, don't get me wrong, CBT, DBT didn't help me, but taking some tiny little things that maybe that person, the psychologist, said to me,
like write down your feelings, or you're taking that bit away and using that, and then
it's all about picking and choosing what's right for you, isn't it?
Finding your medicine. And like, you know, when your mom went off with this fella, did you feel like that abandonment issue, thinking
definitely,
I felt like, you know, I've done all this for you, and I've kicked that out, and I've done all this.
Yeah, and like I went to the police and stuff, and, you know, I filed reports and whatnot, and I think that was probably the tipping edge of it all. And when it all kind of went and she left, it was like, yeah, why am I not good enough? What have I done? You know, I was here, I'm trying to protect you and whatnot, and you're going and putting yourself in this position again, and why are you leaving me? Like, am I too much? Am I too much to deal with? And yeah, I think I still struggle with it now.
I was going to say,
yeah, and almost you're going away with this monster and leaving me. Look, am I as bad as this monster that you're going with, or worse than this monster you're going with?
It used to make me think, and I think it still does, like, do I remind her of my dad? And that's like a really worrying thing for me. When I was younger, I was like, I never ever want to be like my dad. And to think that she might think that about me is like, it breaks my heart.
Do you have any kind of relationship with your dad now? You know, no.
And has it affected like other relationships because of your mom?
Yeah, I think so. Like my family, like I only really speak to my nan and my auntie occasionally. Like my other auntie and stuff, it was always like I was always in the middle of like arguments and stuff and whatnot. And I always, like, with everything that happened as well, like friendships from back home and stuff, I can't maintain them because it's just, they knew everything that happened. And it's like there's almost like prejudgment on me. And yeah, I think like relationships as well, like personal relationships, like partners and stuff. I mean, that's been, you know, like there is elements of it, you know, like feeling like, you know, you're not good enough for them, etc. Am I doing the right thing? Always double checking things. That validation thing is a massive thing for me. Like I'm always asking, was that all right? Do you reckon that's the right way to do it, etc.?
And you feel like guilt, and we all feel good, but like, you know, sometimes when you lose your head, and we all snap at our partners, then do you like almost like frighten yourself, thinking like, what
I'm going to be like my dad.
Yeah,
that's literally the head. Like I used to get quite angry quite a lot, not like to the point of like punching walls and shouting and screaming and stuff, but like I'd raise my voice, I'd get emotional, and
that's a human being does.
And it was like, it used to terrify me. Like it would send me into panic attacks at times. Like I literally was just like, I'm going to be like my dad. I'm going to like my dad. And I just had to like try and bring myself away from that. And it's like remembering like everything that I'm doing now and all the things that I've been through and making sure I'm never going to be like that.
It's fantastic that the NHS look to people with lived experience.
In the last couple of years,
yeah,
there's been a lot of research into lived experience roles and whatnot. And there's like a major place called IMROC. I can't remember what the abbreviation actually stands for, but so they do a lot of research stuff. Their paper's really interesting. I'll try and find it out for you guys after this. It's really interesting about how lived experience can like really help, because peer support's not something new. You know, like peer support's been around for decades and years and years and years. You know, like peer support isn't just people that are paid to do it, is it? You know, like peer support is you guys coming together and having a chat.
Yeah.
You know, peer support can be, you know, from a professional, it can be from your friends, from your family. It doesn't matter. There's so many different levels of it.
So you had it in religion, you go and talk to the priest, to your mate down the mine, down to your mate in the pub. Come here, mates. You're having a wobble. I'll give you a bit. It was mentoring, it was your big brother, it was you. They were the backbone of the community, weren't they? Ethel would go, come on, Julie, come and have a cup of coffee. You know what I mean? Let's go. Yeah. And that's all it was. It was people looking out for one another, saying, I'm not saying exactly, but I've been somewhere similar where you are now. And this is how I got through it. And it's okay. You're not a freak, you're not a weirdo, you're having a wobble, or you're poorly, or you're frightened, or you're frustrated. Come and talk to me.
Yeah, and I think, the NHS, it's been probably the last 2-3 years I started putting people in these posts and whatnot. Like, I started in a charity as peer support, and lived experience. It's that massive thing, isn't it, nowadays? The people that have been through these things are the ones that know most about it.
Yeah.
So don't stop them from being involved in how people can help themselves and whatnot. In empowering hope, as we talk about all the time and stuff, is such a massive thing. And seeing somebody that's been through similar experiences, don't get me wrong, they don't have to be, oh yeah, you've gone through domestic abuse, so have I, etc. It's all right, look, I've struggled with mental health, I've attempted on my life, but I'm still here, and I'm telling my story here now to help you.
Pain can identify with pain, can't it? And it can be any kind of pain, but you get it, you understand. I've been through a dark place and come out, and so have you. You haven't got to regurgitate some book that someone's read, and I haven't had as many years in university, and I can't read big words, but you get me. You're educated in a different way than he is, and that we've often said you can relate to that bloke or that woman, whereas someone who's just regurgitating the posh suit, you're thinking, we're worlds apart here.
And that's like when I started in peer support, my biggest some of those comments that you used to get from people. There's one that really sticks in me. Here's a lad my age, similar experiences and whatnot. And he said, out of all the professionals I spoke to, you're the only one that I felt that's truly understood it.
You can talk their language as well, though, can't you?
You're not having to go from your criteria book, from your DSM-5, etc. All those kind of criteria for medication, etc., medical diagnosis. You'll be able to sit down with that person and say, okay, what's happened? Well, how is it affecting you now? And what do you think is going to be best to help you? And if they don't know, it's right, okay, so these are the things that helped me. These are the things that are in this area and around you. Is there anything that you think you might want to give a go? It's all trial and error, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're never going to have the right answer straight away. And that's the whole part of recovery, isn't it?
Definitely.
But recovery, I hate when people all talk about clinical recovery, your recovery is in you are no longer going to struggle. Recovery is not like that, is it?
No, it's not a straight line, is it? It's bumps, it's curves.
It's learning how to deal with what's happened in the best way you can. And you are going to have your dips, you are going to have your ups and downs and your bounds.
And you're going to have good and bad days where stuff happens to you that you can deal with and you're fine, and then stuff happens that you can't, and you need a bit of extra help.
And that's just life. And you say, one day, the pigeon messes on your car. Next day, you have a car crash. Next day, your car gets stolen. Next day, nothing happens at all. You know what I mean? And next day, you find a fiver on the floor. That's just life, isn't it? But it's having the tools, which I've learned through years of therapy and just growing up and maturing, having the tools in place so when stuff does happen, I'm better equipped now than when I was 30, than when I was 20, than when I was 15, when I was 10, you know what I mean? So, and hopefully when I'm 50, I'll be even more equipped than I am now. And that's what life does, is it gives you opportunities to learn. It gives you people in your life to learn from. And everything that happens is a lesson to learn from, isn't it? And if you're lucky, you've got positive people to support you.
I think that's it, isn't it? A smooth sea doesn't make a good sailor, as my tattoo says. It doesn't, does it? You're never going to learn how to tie a knot if you're just given one tiny piece of string. You've got to learn to do it with a bigger thing. And it goes with everything, doesn't it? You've got to adapt to what's going on. And you've got to ride those waves. You can control the controllables, can't you? But those uncontrollables, you have to just keep your head above that wave and keep moving forward.
Yeah. Sometimes not even like, it's like with swimming. You can learn how to swim, but sometimes you've got to learn how to tread water. And that'll save your life, won't it? Mm-hmm. Just learning how just to keep your head above the float until anything else happens. But you said, I can't remember the name of the word. Is it estranged parents?
Estranged.
Could you explain what that? Because you said something. It's not covered a lot at all, is it?
There's not a lot of research on estrangement. So estrangement is like having no contact with your parents or family. There's so many people out there that are estranged in some way or another. Like, you know, there's different types. Like, so estranged, you could like have really sporadic contact with them, or when you do, it's negative. Or you can have like full estrangement, which is like you don't have any contact, etc. And yeah, I think it's one of those things that's so not addressed, and I think it's happening a lot more and more now. I think with the younger generations as well, I think people are identifying what's more positive and what's negative, and feeling, you know, from all things like social media and stuff, that they can pull away from it a little bit more. And like that is positive, but it's also negative in some ways as well, isn't it?
I think like sometimes when it's with family, you're thinking, I've got to love him, he's my dad. I've got to love him, he's my brother. And sometimes we see toxic relationships as in our peers or in our intimate partners. But if someone is bringing toxicity to your life, step away from them, isn't it? But that also has a counterbalance of the guilt. Have I done the right thing?
Definitely. And that was, you know, with like my estrangements and whatnot, like I was always thinking, have I done the right thing? You know, what happens to her now? You know, like, is she going to be okay and stuff like that? But it's remembering, you know what, nobody else is going to take control of your life, and nobody else is going to do what's best for you. Like, don't get me wrong, some people are always trying to help you and support you, but you've got to make that choice ultimately at what's best for you.
Do you feel like you have now done the right thing? Because you know that you questioned it then, but you...
So, yeah, like a couple of months ago when I saw my nan was always adamant of, oh, just make amends with your mom, and you know, like she was a victim too, etc., etc., etc. And that stuff really, like, it hurt. Like, so I used to like quite get anxious about going to see my nan because I knew those conversations would come up, or she'd be talking about my mom and stuff. And a few months ago, she said to me, I know now that you did the right thing and you're better off without her. And that was like a massive thing for me. Like, to have that validation from her, like, after, you know, it's her sister, it's her sister, Jesus Christ. It's her sister, and sister, oh God.
It's not a sister.
It's her daughter, and, you know, like, her daughter is hers, you know, that she loves her unconditionally.
Yeah. And
she was in that, like, she's always wanted to be the person in the middle to bring it back together, you know. It's like,
that's understandable as well, isn't it? Yeah.
And
a lot of the time they just want harmony, and they almost want this magical wand, peace. But often it's
not. And, you know,
we can all be in each other's lives, but we're not bringing joy to each other's lives. We're always bickering. There's always someone who's all uncomfortable, stepping on eggshells, and we all, if we had that magic wand, we'd all be waving it, wouldn't we? Peace. But sometimes you're just thinking, even the sheer mention of you, my stomach's churning. You know what I mean? And every time I've got a message, but I have to really get myself together to read the message, because before I've even looked at it, I've catastrophized. And if you're after something, or there's drama, whereas when you're not in my life, there is no drama.
And that's how I look at it now is, what do you bring to my life?
Yeah.
Like, I've always, like, I've thought about it, like, last year or two, like, would I want to go and try and make amends in some sense, or have a relationship? And I'm like, what would she actually bring to it? And the truth is, probably not a lot. Like, I've done this for myself now, and I don't want to go backwards. And it's like, it's a choice, definitely. Like, it's something I probably will go at some point. You know, like the ultimate day where, you know, when she passes, or I do, or I'm on my deathbed or whatever, I probably will have regrets about that. But I know I'm doing the right thing for me. And, you know, like, it's never a straightforward, no, I'm just doing it. It's for me, that's it. You know, you're always going to have those or what if I did try to make amends, or what happens if we had a relationship and it was great. There's always those things, but I know I'm protecting myself.
And I think you always have to question that, don't you? Because that could change. You might get 10 years down the line, you might get to next week and go, actually, I want to try now.
Actually, I'm
but you've also got to stop. Yeah, that's it.
Manage those damage limitations.
Yeah,
if it does go wrong.
Yeah, and that's the key, isn't it? Being able to know you can go in there and go, okay, if it doesn't go the way I want it to, it's not going to override the good work I've done, and I can park it there and walk away again and carry on with my life.
Yeah, I just don't think I'm at that point.
No,
and that's what I don't know whether I ever will
be. No,
and that's I'm okay with that. And the way I look at it now is, I am where I am. I was a child in it. I never had the choices that she had, in that sense of she could go and find somebody else. She could go and do what she wanted. I was trying to protect her, and I was that child. Like, it shouldn't be up to me to make those amends. She knew where I lived for 3-4 years. Not once did she come down. And that said, cemented to me, I'm not going to be the one to try and make this better. I tried for years to make things better and to help. And what did I get for it? Homeless.
Yeah. And what would you say to anyone out there who might be going for this right now?
I think I'd say it's to be strong, and strength is not just I can get through it. It's knowing that you have your best interest at heart, and anybody is going through it. I'd look at you've got to weigh it up in your own head. There's never going to be a definite solution, but it's about knowing what's best for you in that moment. And if anybody is going through it, I can't empathize enough. It's such a difficult thing to be in, but the way you look at it is this toxic environment beneficial to me, and is it beneficial to them? And if it's not, why are you there? How do you get out of that? And there's a lot of people will stick around in it. It's you eat what you sow. What you know, but it's knowing that what you deserve better. And life isn't all about your family. Blood isn't always thicker than water. Unfortunately, I've learned that. And sometimes there is too much water under that bridge. Some damage can't be repaired, and some relationships can't be. But it's and I think it's thinking about it in you don't have to be completely cut off from people. You can distance yourself. I moved up to Telford from Pershore. Best decision I ever made was keeping myself out of my hometown. So I didn't have everybody knowing exactly what went on, not asking me, oh, where's your mom? How have you seen her? You spoke to her.
Constant reminded.
Yeah.
Because every time, then, even the mention of this, you're back in that trauma, aren't you? You're back in the zone, you're back in the room. Yeah.
It was
your stomach's back in knots.
Bringing me back to it, and it never let me move forward. I was always working supermarket jobs, warehouse jobs. And when I moved up here, I decided, I'm going to try and make a difference. And that's when I started a mental health.
Is that what it was? So it wasn't as in you didn't meet a therapist yourself and think, actually, I'd like to do that, or a therapist that was bad and thought, I'd like to do better than that.
I think there was a nurse or two when I was an inpatient that really pushed me towards mental health, the way that they were and whatnot. I think her name was Emily. I think the one that I really drew to. And we'd go for our one-to-ones in Costa and stuff. It was great. Just having a coffee and having that conversation.
Yeah, and being in an informal setting.
Yeah.
Not.
I think it pushed me to but don't get me wrong. Back then I didn't have a clue. I think when I got to 17, 18, I started thinking about, I'd like to be a nurse. So I went and did a uni course. I didn't finish it, but I did my placements, and I hated it. All the paperwork and that lack of interaction and time with patients. I didn't feel like I'd go home every night knowing I've done something to make a change or a positive impact on someone. I'd always be going home thinking, is that person going to be all right? Because I haven't had a chance to talk to them really today, or I've had to rush this assessment or whatever. And it put me off completely. And then
the red tape.
Yeah.
The red tape into the holes in the hands.
And that's where I found myself in lived experience stuff. I went off that for a bit. I went and worked in Sainsbury's for 1.5 years, 2 years. And then this role came up in Telford for peer support. and it was supporting people on their discharge from inpatient units. So like from the day one of them being discharged, so you'd be at their discharge meetings and supporting them for like 6 months after that. And like in my interview, I remember saying, if this service was around when I was being discharged, I'd have bit your hand off. Just to have somebody that's like gone through similar experience, like the system, and trying to go back into a community and reconnect with it all and get back into normal life. Such a massive thing, isn't it? Like,
how crazy is it that that's just not a given that happens?
People, you know, like there's services out there, there's like, you know, like you're given discharge plans and stuff and follow-ups and stuff, but it's not enough.
No,
it's
kind of like someone going in with a broken leg, getting it plastered, and then going on your way. Oh, don't bother coming back to take it off. Yeah, we'll just lead you. Yeah, that's it.
You've got to retrain people back into communities. Like, you know, it's all right. Maybe not if it's only like a 2-week stay and stuff. You might not need it, but people that have been in there for 3, 6, 9 months, a year. You know, like things change. People get institutionalized. People get adjusted.
You've seen that people in and out in that. We've said like we need like a halfway house where I'm not quite there to get in, but I need somewhere where you're just going to make sure I'm having a wash, having my tablets, but I can go out. You know what I mean? It's not like I've got to be locked up, but I need someone. They said I care in the community.
Stability in that sense.
But that kind of like, Ben, I know a wobble's coming up. Can I just come and stay for a couple of days? And you know, someone on call is going to pop around and go like, Lee, have you had your tablet? Look, Lee, if you don't start taking them, you know the next step. So you know, for both our sakes, make sure you get them in, you champ, and talk to you as a person instead of a screw kind of thing. Like, you know, you're in nick and they're making you do it.
Yeah, it's so much like that stability thing, isn't it? I think that's what it all comes back to is, you know, everybody needs some sort of stability.
Yeah.
You know, and that's something I lacked for years. And over the last couple of years, I've built that myself. And like having my own stable at home and stuff, like now looking and living with my partner, and that's amazing. And, you know, it's so much weight off your shoulders. Like the financial stuff I wasn't taught and stuff was terrifying. Like I'm still terrified of money, you know, trying to save for a house at the minute. I'm still trying to wrap my head around that's even possible.
Yeah.
And it all comes back to being taught these things and knowing that things are possible and having that stable home life and whatever it is, or like is such an important thing. Like that's what hospital was for me, was just that stability of, I know I'm going to be looked after. I know I can't do anything silly because there's people checking on me every 10 minutes, or I'm on 1-to-1 or whatever. And I know they're going to make sure I have my medication. I'm going to eat. I'm going to have a shower and all those kind of things, just to maintain and just to keep you surviving for that time.
But there's sometimes, don't you see, like some people are almost lifers, where they're in there every time something happens because of that. There's no...
Yeah.
They say care in the community, but that nurse might come and see you once a week or once every so often or whatever it is, instead of going, where is the plan to keep me safe in my own home so I haven't got to come back here?
Yeah, and I think there's, like, over the last couple of years, there's been a lot more stuff on, like, those kind of, like, those RAP plans and stuff. Like, there's work route wellbeing plans, there's suicide safety plans. A lot more of it's coming about, and a lot of those things, you know, like people like just scoff their face at, don't they? But like for me, like I did one, and it was really useful, like just to have something just to refer back to.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like if I'm in a really bad headspace, it's just one piece of paper. It says, right, who can I contact?
Yeah.
What things can help me?
We spoke to David Stocks, didn't we?
Stocks.
He's been on a radio and podcast, hasn't he? And
good friend.
yeah, he advised all that kind of thing, and he's very similar to you actually. He's an older gentleman, but yes, he was through lived experience. He now works for the NHS in suicide prevention and
survivor of suicide, and then he got into it. But once again, like yourself, he's been through the mill, so he can talk about it.
Yeah.
He hasn't read a great book on it.
You've now moved to NHS Black Country.
Yes, I was in the MPFT in Telford before, and I moved over for this new role. So I'm working now as a trainer and young person panel lead.
And this is a new thing that Black Country is setting up.
Not set up yet.
It's
so
in process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm basically delivering training and whatnot for the peer support workers, and along the trust as well of, you know, lived experience, background stuff, and the effects of things, and just delivering training to other professionals on like different things from, like, you know, how communication with patients and whatnot, and how trauma from peer support, just to try and give that lived experience side of things about how, you know, how things come across, rather than reading it from a textbook of this is the way to do it. It's having that different view. And then the other side of my role is the young person panel lead, where I'm doing, so we're setting up a young person panel for like people from 18 to 25 to come in and have their say on the service, and to help us co-produce it as best we can, like, so it is as meaningful to the young people as it possibly can be. And so it's brand new. We're going to be having peer support workers that are going to be working with the people within the localities of the Black Country. There's going to be band 6 workers, which are like your transition workers, and it's all about focusing on the people that are moving from CAM services to adult services. Right. And that's where the service will start. And then eventually what we hope to do is open up some hubs. So like open up community hubs where we can have different organisations in, like on drop-ins and stuff for people to attend, like 18 to 25-year-olds. And there's lots of different places like that out already, like Pop in Warsaw is amazing. I went and visited it the other day. It was really cool, like really amazing. Like, it's almost like a youth club, their first one. They've got like 2 other hubs around Warsaw, and they can offer like different interventions from that. They can do cooking skills, they can do life skills.
If they want to come and do some boxing skills, you know, the Lions ABC, we're always up for stuff like that.
Yeah, it's definitely, once I'm up and running, like all these links that I've got already, like yourselves and whatnot, I will definitely be in touch with. But yeah, we haven't got any patients at the moment. We're still recruiting people, like still getting the brand, like the team name up and whatnot, getting a website, and really co-producing it with the young people.
But when it is up and running, please come back on, and you know we'll do anything we can to support them.
Yeah, definitely. Is there a time scale that you know yet?
I don't want to say.
No, it's absolutely fine. I fully understand.
It's really hard to say at the minute.
Yeah.
It just depends, I think, mostly on how recruiting goes.
Yeah. And is in terms of peer support recruiting, how would people go about? Do you know?
So peer support recruit, like it's, you know, I think.
How could they apply?
Because I'm thinking if someone else has lived experience similar to yourself and thinking, actually, you know what, that's something I'd quite like to explore. How would you advise that people get into that kind of role?
So, like a lot of the stuff, like I would recommend, like if it's probably volunteering would be your first step of call. Like, you know,
go and get some experience.
Just talking to people, like people that are disadvantaged or at risk, or people that need that extra support. So, like, you know, your food banks, your homeless shelters, your local mental health charities, etc. Just, or like anywhere really like that, like anyone, like even at your local hospital, like people that are calling for volunteers all the time, aren't they? Just to help, like almost like porters, but not porters, like just like your chaperones and stuff for people.
Them lovely people. Every time we hospital, the people just go around having a cup of coffee. Do you want a brew? Do you want a sandwich? Do you want a biscuit?
In A&E departments mostly and stuff. Yeah,
they're the backbone, aren't they? Because they're the kind of people who can give you the time of day, making a brew when you're having a blooming awful day, and they'll just come over, have a cuppa, and have a little chat to you. But don't they just light up your day? When you've sat there and you've just got your head in your hands, halfway for having a belly full, and do you want a brew? Yes, please, love. And you know, that small gesture can make a bad day a little bit better, can't it? And that's what volunteers
the God
do.
sends on the children ward at us all. Absolutely, God sends up there. The amount of times, because obviously with my daughter when she's in, you can't leave her, so you can't go and get food, and you've not because you've gone up in an emergency. You're not planned to, you know, all that, and you could, just having a cup of tea, a piece of toast, a chat,
whatever it is.
Them getting toys for the little one.
Just someone else to talk to, who's around sadness all the day, but has still got a smile on their face. And that in itself is a skill.
Yeah, there's Julie on the children's ward. She's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. How can you be in a place like this and still be chipper? But they are, aren't they?
Yeah.
And that they're the angels, and they're the people who don't get paid, don't get no credit. But out of everyone you've seen that day, they're probably the person you've had a laugh with. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that is it, isn't it? It's all about, you know, with like peer support as well, it's like, you know, it's helping you as much as it's helping them.
Mm.
And I know that's quite a selfish way to look at it, but like you helping somebody else gives you that kind of that goodness in your heart, doesn't it? It gives you that warm feeling that like you've made a difference and whatnot. And there's also that side of it, obviously, of helping that person, you know, knowing someone that they can relate to and whatnot. And even, you know, it doesn't have to be something really deep and meaningful. Like you don't have to go through their story one by one with them and like go through every little detail. It's just relating on a level that they're comfortable with.
Yeah.
And, you know, like people that want to get into peer support and whatnot, it's being open to understanding people come from different ways and different backgrounds and just listening to it. Like there's no set way of being a peer support worker, you know, like people are, you know, like the NHS is revolutionising it now with lived experience stuff. There's going to be so many more posts coming out and out and out. And the benefit it has is absolutely massive. Like on the teams I've been in, like just having a different opinion on like some of the groups that they're doing, like some of the life skill groups, for example, about like their like how they're delivering them and whatnot. It's such a massive thing, and they're only little things, but it's somebody that's been through it would think of that someone that hasn't wouldn't.
We say this quite often with the disabilities, don't we? And just about access to places and that, and there's things you don't realise until you, like Kev says, painting steps yellow because you can see yellow better, and but without having Kev there telling you that, like I want to know. You know, a step's a step, just get up with kind of thing. But you because you don't put yourself in those people's shoes. But when you've lived it, you know about it.
But as you say, it's only obvious if you know the answer, and you only know the answer if you're around it.
You know, a lot of the time, I think it is trying to figure out what your answer is. You know, like,
and also have the intelligence to realise I'm not going to know the answer, so I'm clever enough to know I don't know everything. So how about ask someone who does?
And then, and you learn about things in your own way, don't you? Your own pace. Like, you know, we're always learning, we're always growing, we're always building on what we've got already, or always like up to a new challenge and whatnot. And it's how you deal with it now. And all these things that you learn across everything grow you, don't they, as a person? You're not going to have enough tools in your workbox when you're 10. You know, you have to keep going and keep learning and keep going through adversity and stress and whatnot to learn how to deal with it. And that's not saying put yourself in stressful situations, but it's
stressful. Cool. That's life.
Life is stressful, isn't it? It's a roller coaster in that sense. You're never going to be absolutely fine and have everything go right for you. You know, but it's learning about how you deal with it when it doesn't go right. And like knowing, you know what, you can't control everything. You can change some things, but you can't make everything better and happy. It's about being in those times and knowing, you know what, things will get better. This isn't forever, but at the same time, I can't sit here and lull in it. I've got to make a change. You know, like with the plant thing we talked about earlier. You know, like you can't put a plant in a bit of water. You can't put a plant in soil and then say, "Why haven't you bloomed?" But the soil's poor, it's got no water, it's not been watered. You look at the environment, don't you? It's the same with somebody, you know, like if you haven't got good support network around you, if you haven't got good distraction techniques or good coping techniques or some stability or a home, you know, all these basic things that people need to be social creatures that we are, then you're never going to move forward. And it's really picking out those things in your life that are important to you. You know what, for some people being social and having friends isn't that important. They're quite happy sitting behind a screen on the game, like I am a lot of the time. But you know, we all need connection in some way.
The connection can come in many different forms, can't it?
There's people on my Xbox that I've played with for 5 years that I probably know better than some of my friends in real life. So like it's just, it doesn't matter how you make those connections. It's just as long as they're pure and they are true to what you want.
Well, Ben, that's been brilliant today.
Yeah, really enjoyed it. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Before we go, have you got any quotes or sayings that have helped you get through life?
God, now you put me on the spot. There's a couple.
Well, I like that what you just said about the flower, but
You've already used this, so we want another.
give me more.
So the one that's on my leg is that smooth sea step make good sailors. And I think that's a really good one to look at, is that like yeah, that you don't have to have, like all the hardest times you've been through aren't going to bring you down and they're not going to make you a shipwreck. They're things that you can get over and ride over. And I think it's just important to remember that it's okay that, things aren't all right now. I don't really know what the other quote is. There's loads in my head, but it's just not coming out. So
Don't worry. No, I think that ties in great with lived experience, doesn't it?
Well, guys, I hope you've enjoyed it. I want you all to take care of yourselves and each other. Ta-ra a bit.
Listen.
And that's a wrap for another show. But if there are any comments or messages that you would like us to read out for our next podcast, please be in touch. There are also lots of different organisations at the bottom of this page, and hopefully they can help you or someone you care about. Please share this to spread the word. Until we talk next time, ta-ra a bit.